Hello and welcome to South Asia Focus. I'm Smita Prakash. This week we have with us former Indian diplomat and strategic analyst K C Singh. We will be discussing with him the counterintelligence probe on Robin Raphel, former US Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asia. But first, here's a brief report.
Robin Raphel, a retired US ambassador who had been an advisor to the State Department Special Representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan, is under a counterintelligence probe. According to media reports from Washington, D.C., the investigation involves allegations of spying. Besides being Assistant Secretary of State under President Clinton, she also served in the CIA, USAID in Islamabad, as a political counselor in New Delhi, and was married and later divorced to the American ambassador in Pakistan, Robin Raphel, who died in the plane crash that killed General Zia-ul-Haq in 1988. She was even a member of the Afghanistan-Pakistan Task Force of late Richard Holbrooke, another US diplomat known to be critical of India. Pakistani expert and assistant professor at Center for Peace and Security Studies, Georgetown University, Christine Fair said that Robin Raphel merely executed US policy as a diplomat.
During most of her career with respect to India and Pakistan, she was executing state policy.
India believes that Raphel has always been pro-Pakistan and that she encouraged separatists. But Pakistani columnist Raza Rumi is of the view that Raphel was just doing her job as a diplomat.
And the US diplomats like Robin and others were playing their part. And we must remember that diplomats are at the end of the day bureaucrats. They carry out policy, they don't create the policy.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, sir. Robin Raphel. Now, in the 1990s, you were a young officer with the Indian Foreign Service. You were here in Delhi. Many of us, who were covering the foreign beat, we used to wonder why is it that an US Assistant Secretary of State has the kind of access that she did have. And it was quite clear even in the early visits that she had a very anti-India stance. What was the problem? Why did India give her the kind of access that she could meet with the Indian Prime Minister with such ease?
Actually, it started earlier. She was here as a political counselor in the embassy from about 91. Co-terminus almost with this beginning point of the Narasimha Rao government. As you know, the government then was really, gasping for economic breath because balance of payments was a problem. Foreign exchange had become a serious issue. We had begun liberalizing. So we needed US in the World Bank, IMF. So India was really vulnerable in 91 when Narasimha Rao took over. So even a political counselor in the US embassy could strut around and have much greater access than normally a counselor would be given. And then, of course, in 93, she becomes the Assistant Secretary of State, and that was with President Clinton. And they were together. What we learnt was they were together at Oxford. They knew each other from their youth. And she then was able to take all her prejudices, which she had cultivated over a period of time, because don't forget, she started as a CIA analyst. Then she worked, she taught in Tehran. And I wouldn't be surprised if that too was a cover for CIA during Shah's regime. So she had the CIA background and with a heavy pro-Pakistan slant. From the Cold War era. Of course, this is not to say no one else would have had that slant, wouldn't have had that slant in the State Department.
Take us through India in the 1990s battling with the Kashmir problem and not getting international support, whereas the US at that time backing Pakistan completely, not taking the Indian line that there was cross-border terrorism, that there was support to the Indian separatist movement from Pakistan. Take us through that period when you were battling literally, or the Indian Foreign Service was battling with this agitation, with this problem.
See, I think fortunately we had an astute Prime Minister with an outstanding Foreign Secretary. Dixit took over at the end of 91. Hardeep Puri was a staff officer, then became Joint Secretary Americas, who's now with the BJP. So we had an excellent team which was then dealing with it. But we were on the back foot. And this is not for the first time. After 62, you would remember, even though John Kennedy threw his weight behind us, but they also immediately put pressure on India to settle the Kashmir issue. So the Americans have off and on, when they thought India was vulnerable, Pakistan would use their influence, their Cold War influence with US, to put pressure on India that don't move with India, and that would be a problem for the Americans, because they'll say no military aid to be given, no major assistance to India unless India settles the Kashmir issue. That did not change until after the mid-90s. And I think Robin Raphel would be the last attempt at this twisting of Indian arm. And she was the Assistant Secretary of State, and twist she did.
There are many who say that she is the one who gave birth to the term disputed territory with regard to Kashmir. There are others who defend her in Washington, who say that she was just merely carrying forward the Clinton administration and earlier administration's point of view, and probably the fault, if you call it a fault, is what they say, that she thought that she took it upon herself to resolve the Kashmir issue.
Well, we've seen a column written by someone quoting Hardeep Puri that when he had gone to Washington to negotiate, while talking to the Indians, she brought a sheaf of papers in it. She said, Pakistanis have given this and you please read it. Now, which means she was actively intervening. And Americans, I think they had learnt over a period of time.
Now, tell me, when you mean actively intervening, she went beyond what was necessary because she was working for Americans.
Yeah.
And how can she give
it? It is one thing to field issues indirectly, but we already had 40-year history or 50-year history between India and US. And they had learnt over a period of time, from Eisenhower onwards, that the best way to deal with the India-Pakistan issues is not to be intrusive. If you become intrusive, India's back will go up and they will reject it. So you could, in a friendly way, push it along, but be omniscient, don't be intrusive. Whereas Robin Raphel was in your face, and for her to be giving a Pakistani document in an India-US dialogue, the Indians rejected it. They even refused to pick it up. They said, if Pakistan wants to give us some document, because our argument after 1972 Simla summit was that Pakistan has conceded this is a bilateral issue and we will deal with it bilaterally. So who are you? What is your locus standi? But by her going back to the pre-1972 jargon, it may be right that Americans had used those terms earlier, but post-72, slowly they had put it on the back burner. And certainly levels are important. If the Assistant Secretary of State uses those terms, it has a different significance from, say, they use it in a multilateral conference or somewhere on the sidelines, or some spokesman in answer to a question does it. But when the Assistant Secretary of State, known to have proximity to the President and to the White House, uses it, the assumption on the Indian side is it has sanctions at levels higher than her.
If I was to come back to Robin Raphel, now there's a counterintelligence probe. There are her friends in Washington who say that she was probably just sloppy. She carried her work home. Would you say that, would you term that correct reading?
Someone who's held high positions in US, they're very, very clear about how you handle official information. But this is, I think, a flaw in the US system, because when they're not in office, they go and join lobbying firms. Don't forget, before she rejoined State Department, she was in a lobbying firm and she was actively...
So Cassidy and Associates.
Yeah, having the Pakistani account amongst a couple of other countries. Maybe Tunisia was another one. Now, they don't treat this as conflict of interest, whereas we here, or probably in England, this would be seen as a conflict of interest, a country you dealt with, or region you dealt with.
It seems it didn't apply to her because she didn't go through, I mean, the State Department can hire, it's not the Obama administration as such. So there is some loophole by which she was hired. So that rule did not apply to her, that she was working for a lobbying firm. Weeks later, she joins the State Department.
Maybe, but once she joined them, even on a contract, the secrecy laws will apply. But I think here it may not be so much documents which were top secret, because I think she was involved with the Kerry Lugar Act, $1.5 billion a year aid to be given to Pakistan. So she was overseeing where this money is to be spent and to whom it is to be given. There may be elements on expenditure, on use of this money or misuse of this money, on which they may be chasing her, not so much on some top secret information she gave out.
Did the Indian administration feel that even after retirement and now in the State Department and then with earlier with the Holbrooke team, that she played the Pakistan card. She promoted the separatists who were based in Washington, like FAI and the others. Did the Indian administration think that she continued with this anti-India stance all through?
Look, when Holbrooke came in, India was very concerned. So very early on, I think we made our reservations known. The advantage was that Hillary Clinton manifested a pro-India tilt. So that balancing was there. She was the one who was bringing Holbrooke in. So very quickly, I think she rectified whatever negative impression was created by saying AFPAC does not cover India. And as you know, Holbrooke was not welcome here. So we were able to really de-link India from AFPAC, at least officially, though unofficially they may have continued to have work towards bringing India into it. But essentially AFPAC was limited to Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there I think Hillary Clinton did damage control and was able to address the Indian concerns. To that extent, Robin Raphel was not directly a problem for us because she was dealing with Pakistan within that sequestered, isolated AFPAC arrangement, which in any case didn't even have access to the White House. As we are learning now, even Holbrooke was feeling very isolated because post-Clinton, or even during Clinton's time, his protection was only limited to Clinton.
You have a vast range of experience now, having worked in so many countries. Do you think that a person of her caliber would not have covered her tracks well, and she could fall into the net of a counterintelligence probe and really have her career as a lobbyist as well as somebody in the State Department, getting privileges and access all shut up now?
Does she come out as a very smart diplomat that she serves in Delhi and is still so insensitive to Indian sentiments? Then she goes as Assistant Secretary of State, where her success depended on retaining Indian confidence, and she offends India continuously and therefore hurts herself in achieving the opposite of what any Assistant Secretary of State would want to achieve, which is utilize her links to Pakistan, but be sensitive to Indian feelings. So she's not shown great wisdom in the past in dealing with the subject she dealt with.
Why is there so much silence? Why are lips all shut in Washington? Usually columns come immediately, but strangely there seems to be some kind of a conspiracy to just be silent on this issue till the probe is over. Why do you see that happening? Why is it happening?
Firstly, maybe it's not such a big thing in Washington. You see, it's not leading to the White House. The Republicans would be all gung-ho. Firstly, they were busy with the elections. Those are over. They've got the Senate and the Congress. They've scored a victory against the Democrats. So they don't want to flog a dead horse. And for them, Robin Raphel giving something to Pakistan, etc., maybe impinging on Indian interests, is always a secondary matter. It's not feeding directly into US security interests. So therefore, I suspect if there was security interests involved,
we still don't know what are the documents.
We don't know. Then they might have gone overboard, because that would have meant US, the White House somehow you could.
Because everybody knows right now. I mean, even the Republicans, they keep talking about Pakistan as a frenemy, and here is a lady who might have given these documents to Pakistan. Everybody knows that she's been meeting with the Pakistanis, visiting Pakistan very often, supposedly under the cover of US aid and disbursing the US aid. So wouldn't that be something that would be flagged to their interest?
You would have seen my tweet. I tweeted this. I said, look at this. Homeland, the serial which whole of America, and we are seeing it in India, is showing an American ambassador's husband compromised by ISI. And here it is a question of life following serial, where you have a former widow who has been compromised by them. So this is, I think Americans now, if it is coming on primetime serials are showing ISI duplicity, I don't think India needs to plead its case any more strongly. It's been ingested by them. They realize it even at the popular level. Once drama takes it over, I think ISI and the Pakistanis have a problem.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, Ambassador Singh.